I never thought I'd feel invisible at 60. Not invisible exactly, just finished. Like the best parts of my life had already been lived, packed neatly into photo albums and memories I couldn't touch anymore. That morning, I sat in my kitchen, staring at the steam curling from my mug of coffee, and I realized how quiet everything had become. No children bouncing in the hallway, no laughter echoing from the living room, just the faint hum of the refrigerator and the ticking clock on the wall. I had spent decades taking care of everyone else. My husband, God rest his soul, had been gone 10 years, leaving an empty space that echoed with memories. My children had lives of their own, and sometimes I wondered if they even remembered the little things I had done for them, the sacrifices I had made. And yet, that morning, as I stared at the half-empty cup of coffee in my hands, a thought hit me. Maybe my life was over? I sighed and looked out the window. The garden I once loved to tend now grew wild and untamed. The roses were overgrown, the grass patchy. It felt symbolic, somehow, of me. Untended, forgotten, fading. And then, the knock. I froze. A soft, polite rap at the door. Who could it be at this hour? The mail doesn't come until noon, and I rarely had visitors. Heart thudding, I shuffled across the room and peered through the peephole. No one, just the quiet street. Maybe it was the wind. I shook my head and turned away. Then another knock, louder this time. My curiosity fought with my stubbornness. Slowly, I opened the door. There, lying on my welcome mat, was a small envelope, cream-colored, with my name written in neat, unfamiliar handwriting. No stamp, no return address, just my name. I picked it up with trembling hands. Something about it made my chest tighten. I wanted to toss it aside, pretend it wasn't there. But something deeper, a spark of curiosity I hadn't felt in years, nudged me forward. I tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper. In careful, looping handwriting, it read, "It's not too late. Something wonderful is waiting for you." I blinked twice. My heart raced. My mind reeled. Who could have sent this? A prank? A neighbor? Or something more? I didn't know it yet, but that tiny piece of paper, the weight of those 6 simple words, would change everything. For the first time in a long time, a thrill of anticipation ran through me. Life might not be over, after all. I tucked the note into my pocket and went back to the kitchen. My coffee had gone cold. I stared at it, and a smile, small, hesitant, crept onto my face. I didn't know what awaited me, but I felt alive again. For the first time in years, the day seemed full of possibility. And I didn't even know that in just a few hours, a single unexpected encounter would turn my quiet, predictable life upside down. I remember those days so clearly, though sometimes they feel like someone else's life. My house used to be full of noise, children running through the halls, my husband humming in the kitchen while he cooked, the TV blaring cartoons in the afternoons. I thought I loved every chaotic second, and I did. But I never realized how quietly my own life was slipping away, buried under everyone else's needs. I raised my children with all my heart. I made school lunches, stayed up late helping with homework, patched scraped knees, listened to endless complaints about friendship dramas. I cheered at every recital, every soccer game, every small victory, all while my own dreams gathered dust on the shelf. By the time I turned 60, I felt invisible, like my purpose had been fulfilled and there was nothing left for me. The quiet in my home was deafening now. Some mornings, I would make coffee just to have something to do. I would wander from room to room, glance at the faded photographs on the walls, and wonder if I had done enough, if I had been enough. I loved my family fiercely, but sometimes I wished someone would love me just for being me, not as mom or grandma, just me. And then there were the small reminders everywhere, the unopened birthday cards from neighbors, the dusty teacups on the shelves, the garden I had once adored, now wild and untamed. I tried to tidy it sometimes, but I often gave up halfway. Life had become a series of small, lonely routines, predictable and safe. I told myself this was fine. I told myself I was content, but deep down, I wasn't. I had friends, yes, but they all seemed caught up in their own lives, busy with grandchildren, clubs, volunteering. I envied their laughter and connection. Sometimes I would watch them from a distance, hoping that one day, maybe, I could have a little of that joy too. But most days I resigned myself to quiet dinners alone, flipping through old photo albums and remembering the life I had built for everyone else. Yet even in those quiet moments, I never stopped noticing the little sparks, birds at the window, the scent of fresh bread from the bakery down the street, a child's laughter echoing from a neighbor's yard. They reminded me, in ways I couldn't name, that life was still alive outside my routine. I just hadn't remembered how to reach for it. And that morning, as I held the mysterious envelope in my hand, all those memories, the noise, the chaos, the joy, and the quiet despair flooded back. For the first time in years, I realized maybe life hadn't ended. Maybe it was waiting, quietly, for me to open the door and step into it again. I didn't know what the day held. I didn't know who would knock next or what surprise was hiding behind the ordinary. But for the first time in a long while, my heart thumped, not with worry, not with resignation, but with curiosity. That small spark, the note, the possibility, was enough to stir something long buried. Hope. And I had no idea how quickly that hope would turn into a joy I never thought I could feel at my age. That afternoon, I found myself wandering down the street, the note still tucked safely in my pocket. I didn't know why I went out. Perhaps to shake off the heaviness that had settled over me, or perhaps because some tiny part of me, the part that hadn't given up yet, wanted to see if life had more to offer. The air was crisp, the kind of autumn chill that makes your cheeks tingle and your lungs fill with the sharp scent of falling leaves. I passed familiar houses, the same ones I had walked past hundreds of times, but that day, everything looked different, brighter somehow, as if the world had noticed me and decided it was time to pay attention. Then I saw her, a woman my age, maybe a little younger, standing outside a small art studio, holding a stack of flyers. She looked up and smiled when she saw me. Not the polite, fleeting smile of a stranger, but a warm, full smile, the kind that seems to say, "I see you, and you belong here." "Excuse me," she called, stepping closer. "Are you interested in painting? We're starting a new class today. No experience needed, just bring yourself." I hesitated. Paint? Me? I hadn't picked up a brush since I was a young girl, lost in the chaos of raising a family. I almost said no. I almost turned and walked back to my quiet, predictable house. But then I glanced down at the note in my pocket. "Something wonderful is waiting for you." I laughed softly to myself. Could it be this simple? Could happiness really come in such small, unexpected packages? With a hesitant nod, I followed her inside the studio. The room smelled of paint and wood and the faint sweetness of turpentine. Canvases leaned against the walls, bright with color and possibility. A few women were already there, chatting quietly, brushes in hand. They glanced up, smiled, and returned to their work. I felt a flicker of nerves. What if I wasn't good enough? What if I embarrassed myself? But as I stepped closer to a blank canvas, something unexpected happened. My fingers itched to touch the brush, to mix the colors, to create. It was like a memory waking from a long, deep sleep. And when I finally dipped the brush in paint and made my first stroke, a small thrill ran through me, a thrill I hadn't felt in decades. I glanced around at the other women, their quiet concentration, their gentle smiles, and I realized something. This was not about talent. This was about joy, about allowing myself to exist, to be seen, to do something for me, something I had forgotten existed, pure, unhurried happiness. And just like that, the day that had started so quietly, so mundanely, began to sparkle. A small spark, yes, but enough to ignite a fire I didn't even know was inside me. I left the studio that evening with paint on my hands, a bright smudge on my cheek, and a heart pounding with excitement. For the first time in years, I felt alive. Little did I know, that first small choice, the choice to walk through that door, was only the beginning. The real surprises, the moments that would truly change everything, were still waiting for me, quietly, around the next corner. That night, I sat in my living room, the paint-stained apron folded neatly on the chair beside me. I should have felt content, I told myself. I had taken a small step, something different, something for myself. And yet, a nagging worry crept in. Am I too old for this? I asked myself. 60 isn't young. Who was I kidding, thinking I could start something new? Maybe I was just pretending, chasing a feeling that had no place in my quiet, ordinary life. The house was dark, silent, and still, except for the ticking clock. I stared at the photographs on the wall, my family, my life, and felt a strange tug of guilt. I had spent so long giving, nurturing, sacrificing. Was it selfish now to want something for me? Sleep didn't come easily that night. I tossed and turned, memories mingling with fears. What if I embarrassed myself at the studio again? What if I failed? What if I didn't belong there at all? Doubt was a heavy blanket, smothering the small spark of excitement I had felt earlier. But then, I remembered the note. Those 6 simple words echoed in my mind. Something wonderful is waiting for you. I sat up and held the paper in my hands. Could it really be true? Could life still hold surprises, even at my age? My heart fluttered. Deep down, a tiny voice whispered, "Yes, don't give up yet." The next morning, I hesitated before getting out of bed. The sunlight poured through the blinds, warm and inviting, almost as if the world itself was urging me to try again. Slowly, I dressed and made my way back to the studio. My hands were shaky, my stomach full of nerves, but I took a deep breath and reminded myself, this was for me. When I arrived, the women were already there, chatting, laughing softly, brushes in hand. I could feel their eyes on me, not judging, just noticing. And in that moment, something shifted. Doubt still lingered, yes, but excitement pushed back harder. I was ready to let it in. I picked up a brush. The paint felt cool and smooth in my fingers, and as I made my first stroke of the morning, a small thrill shot through me, stronger than before. It was messy, imperfect, but it was mine. I realized then that the real resistance had been inside me all along. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of wasting time. Those fears were heavy chains I had been carrying for decades. And now, I was finally setting them down, one brushstroke at a time. That day, I left the studio with a sense of quiet triumph. The world hadn't changed, but I had. And even though doubts would return, even though the old habits of caution and worry would try to creep back, I knew something important. Life could still surprise me. And little did I know, the real surprise, the moment that would make me truly believe life was far from over, was about to arrive in the most unexpected way. It was a Tuesday afternoon when it happened, the moment that made me realize maybe life wasn't over for me at all. I had returned to the studio, still hesitant, still questioning if I belonged, but determined to try again. The room smelled faintly of turpentine and fresh paint, and the sunlight streamed through the tall windows, falling on the canvases like golden threads. I found my usual corner, set up my paints, and began to work. My hands moved almost instinctively, each stroke smoother than the last. And then I felt it. Joy. Pure, bubbling, uncontainable joy. A woman named Linda, sitting nearby, glanced over and smiled warmly. "That's beautiful," she said softly. "You have a gift." I blinked. A gift? For me? I laughed, a little embarrassed, and shook my head. "I'm no artist," I murmured. "But you are," she insisted. "Look at how you're expressing yourself. This is real. This is you." Her words sunk in slowly, like sunlight warming cold soil. I realized she was right. I was creating something that belonged only to me, no one else. For the first time in decades, I felt seen, not as a mother, not as a widow, not as a woman who had quietly faded into the background, but as me. As I painted, I noticed something remarkable. My heart was lighter. The aches of years, the quiet loneliness, the endless what-ifs about wasted time, they were all fading, replaced with a simple, undeniable happiness. I laughed softly to myself, a sound I hadn't heard in a long time. Later, when I stepped outside the studio, I felt a small thrill as the crisp autumn air brushed against my cheeks. For the first time in a very long while, I looked forward to tomorrow. The possibility that my life could hold small moments of joy, of wonder, was real. I walked home slowly, savoring the feeling. My steps were lighter, my eyes brighter. I caught the reflection of myself in a shop window and paused. I saw not the invisible woman I had imagined, but someone awakening, rediscovering herself piece by piece. And then, as I unlocked my front door, I heard the faint sound of laughter from a nearby yard, children playing, their voices carrying on the breeze. Normally, I would have glanced and kept walking, but today, I paused. I smiled. Something deep inside me whispered, "This is only the beginning." I didn't know it yet, but that small afternoon of painting, that first burst of joy, was the first step toward a life I had almost given up on. And soon, a connection, something unexpected and extraordinary would come that would change everything for me. A few weeks passed, and painting became more than a hobby. It became a ritual, a secret garden where I could lose myself and yet find myself at the same time. And with it came people, real people who saw me, not as a 60-year-old widow, not as someone done with life, but as a woman who still had stories to tell, laughter to share, and dreams waiting quietly in the corners of her heart. Linda, the woman who had first encouraged me, became my guide and my friend. She had a way of noticing things others overlooked, the small joys, the little victories, and she celebrated them with genuine warmth. One afternoon, as we painted side by side, she said, "You have a light inside you, Margaret. You just forgot it was there." I looked at her, startled. A light inside me? Could it really still shine after all these years of quiet, of sacrifice, of loneliness? I laughed softly, shaking my head, but deep down, I felt her words stir something tender, something fragile yet stubbornly persistent. And then there was Mark. He was volunteering at the studio, helping with supplies, always quietly polite, with eyes that seemed to notice everything. At first, I barely spoke to him beyond the polite greetings, but one day, he asked me about a painting I had been struggling with. I explained my thought process, and to my surprise, he listened. Not impatiently, not dismissively, but with genuine interest. "You have a remarkable eye," he said. "I can see the story you're trying to tell. It's beautiful." It was a simple sentence, but it struck me deeply. Someone appreciated me. Someone saw me, not my age, not my past, not my quiet despair, but me. And for the first time in years, I realized that connection, human connection, could still be part of my life. Evenings at home became less lonely. I looked forward to mornings at the studio. I noticed a spring in my step, a lightness in my heart. And yet, there were moments when fear crept back in. Fear that it was all too good to be true. Fear that I would fail again, that this new happiness was fragile, temporary. But each time doubt rose, another small joy would steady me. A shared laugh with Linda, a compliment from Mark, the simple act of seeing color on a canvas take life under my brush. It was a slow awakening, a careful rebuilding of hope brick by brick, smile by smile. And one afternoon, as the sunlight poured through the studio windows and fell on the paint-smeared floor, I realized something extraordinary. I hadn't just rediscovered happiness. I had found courage. Courage to open my heart again, courage to step out of the shadows of my past, courage to believe that life still had surprises, even for someone like me. Little did I know, the biggest surprise, the moment that would change everything, was just around the corner. It was a surprise so profound that it would make me laugh, cry, and realize that life, even at 60, could be more beautiful than I had ever imagined.
I didn't know it yet, but life was about to surprise me in a way I never expected. It was a Friday afternoon, golden sunlight spilling across the studio floor, and I had just finished a painting I was particularly proud of. My hands were streaked with color, my hair slightly messy from leaning over the canvas, and my heart full. Linda came over, smiling that warm, knowing smile. "Margaret, there's someone here to see you," she said. I frowned. "See me? Who?" "Just wait and see," she replied with a wink, and that only made my heart beat faster. I followed her to the front of the studio, where Mark was waiting, holding a small package wrapped in brown paper. He looked nervous, which made me laugh. He was usually so calm and steady, and now here he was, fidgeting like a schoolboy. "Margaret," he said, his voice low, "I wanted to give this to you. I hope you'll like it." I took the package in my hands, feeling the weight of it, the warmth and the care that had clearly gone into wrapping it. My fingers trembled slightly as I untied the string and opened it. Inside was a small, hand-carved wooden box. I lifted the lid and my breath caught. Inside were dozens of tiny painted tiles, each one a miniature version of the paintings I had created over the past weeks. Every brushstroke, every color, every imperfect line carefully replicated and preserved. I made these for you," Mark said quietly, "so you'll always have a piece of what you've created, a reminder that you're never too late to find joy." Tears welled up in my eyes. I couldn't speak at first. My heart ached. Not with sadness, but with joy so deep it left me breathless.
After all these years of quiet sacrifice, after all these years of thinking my best days were behind me, here was someone who saw me, truly saw me, and celebrated me. I looked up at him, at Linda, at the women around us, and I laughed softly, a sound I hadn't heard in decades. "I don't know what to say," I whispered. "You don't need to say anything," Mark replied gently. "Just know that life isn't over. Not for you, not ever." And in that moment, I realized he was right. Life wasn't over. It had never been over. I had just forgotten how to notice it, how to open my heart, how to step forward and let the small moments carry me to joy. That wooden box, those tiny painted tiles, and the love behind them were more than a gift. They were a symbol that happiness, wonder, and connection could arrive at any age, sometimes in the smallest, most unexpected ways. I hugged him and my heart felt lighter than it had in years. I laughed, cried, and smiled all at once. And for the first time in decades, I felt completely, undeniably alive. Life had changed, not just in that moment, but forever. And I knew without a shadow of a doubt that this was only the beginning of a new chapter, one where joy, love, and possibility were waiting for me at every turn.
That evening, I sat on my porch, the wooden box of painted tiles beside me, and watched the sun dip behind the trees. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, and I felt a quiet peace settle over me. For the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. I felt alive, seen, valued. I thought about the long road that had brought me here, the quiet mornings, the lonely afternoons, the years of caring for everyone else before myself. I thought about the doubts that had whispered in my ear, telling me I was too old, too tired, too far gone. And I smiled, because those doubts, they had been wrong. Life had a funny way of reminding me that it's never too late. Happiness can appear in the smallest gestures, the simplest moments. A smile, a kind word, a brushstroke on a canvas, a thoughtful gift from someone who truly sees you. I realized something important. Joy isn't reserved for the young, the busy, or the famous. It's waiting quietly for all of us, even in our 60s, even in our quietest moments. We just have to be brave enough to notice it, brave enough to open the door, and brave enough to take that first small step. I ran my fingers over the tiles, each one a miniature reflection of my creativity, my courage, and my renewed hope. And I promised myself something. I would never let life pass me by again. I would seek out joy, nurture it, and share it wherever I could. The house felt warmer that night. The garden seemed brighter, almost as if it were celebrating with me. I laughed softly, thinking how strange and wonderful life is, how a small note, a painting class, and the kindness of a friend could transform everything. I leaned back in my chair, closed my eyes, and breathed in the cool evening air. Life had not ended at 60. It had only just begun. And as I sat there, I thought of you, whoever you are watching this story right now. Maybe you're feeling invisible, tired, or forgotten. Maybe you think your best days are behind you. But take it from me, a single small moment, a single brave choice can change everything. Open your heart, step forward, and let life surprise you. So, tell me, dear friend, what small moment could change your life today?